Hey, Terry, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Erica? Cosmic
I'm
Mama?
good. I'm good. I'm feeling well rested. My mind is clear. I got lots of things on my plate, but I'm not feeling overwhelmed. How was your it was Mother's Day
Yeah,
weekend this year. Here. So
yeah,
it's also Mother's Day there too, because you guys always have different holidays.
yep. Yeah, but Mother's Day, I think, is universal here in North America. I think in Europe
Aha.
they have it, and I know in England they have it in April at some point or end of March. But no, I had a lovely day. My daughter and son-in-law made me brunch, and we had a nice
Good.
visit. So that was good. Yippers!
I definitely spent the weekend. Oh, that's Archer just jumping out the window, scaring me. It's like, when you're not in your home, like you have your noises at home in your home. When you're at someone else's home, you're like, wait, what? Everything just sounds escalated. It's so funny.
Yeah, different.
Let me take this ticker off. That's for group. I need to probably share the YouTube link on the channel. Um, There's a couple of things that I wanted to get into today. I guess it's one big thing because people think
Mhm.
like healed people should be quiet and healed people should be calm, nice, cool, and collected. I think it's so funny because I say this to people all the time because this is always happening to people, right? Someone can step on your toe 10 times, and on the 11th time, when when you say something, they look at you like you should be a Christian or you supposed to be healed or you're supposed, like they make you into the villain when you stand up for yourself in any kind of way. And that's
Mhm.
baloney, y'all.
Oh, yes.
That's a bunch of baloney.
It's true. And I've lived my life that way. Is I don't say anything, and then if I say something, it's like, ah, you can only carry carry that for so long without saying something, and I don't think we're not meant to be quiet about things, because if we are quiet, then it just shows people that they can step on us, and
It
we're just
does.
saying no. I'm not a stepping stone anymore.
Nope. I'm not a stepping stone. They use me to make buildings. They use me to hit people with
I'm a
rocks.
firm foundation. Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people
A firm
who have done.
foundation, and I
Go
was
on.
thinking even a cornerstone. Because you said firm foundation, so I'm even a cornerstone. So there was this poem
Yeah.
that I wanted to present too, because for some reason it just really reminded me of it. And it's called Don't Go Gently Into That Good Night. Do you remember that poem?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it really was about death and stuff. But I mean, I would think this is about your death and your rebirth, and we'll break it down. But it starts with Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying light of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gently into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright, their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay, rage, rage against the dying light. Wild men caught who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late it in grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see the blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying light. I think it's a huge misjustice to read this in high school and never read it again. Because
I agree.
before we would be like, what the heck is he talking about? And the thing that stands out to me right now, just reading it, is rage, rage against the dying light. And it is the death of you, the death of your soul, the death of goodness, the death of purpose. It's like, don't go gently. Like, we have causes that we need to stand up for. So many things.
Well, I think we've seen it over the last few years, the way that our society has just allowed things to happen, and it's like we know that it's wrong, and yet people followed a false lead, so to speak. They became sheep, and I think this poem is about not being that sheep. It is, like, challenge, question. Don't let the light die, because our and I don't want to get political, but our liberties are being taken away from us, and we're just allowing it. There's no rage, there's no outrage. They were just saying, okay, I guess we have to wear masks. Okay, I guess we have to get, other stuff. But, nobody questions it, and our lights are being extinguished. And nobody's just, they're good people, but they're not standing up for what's right.
And what I did not realize, so because I've been coming home as this different person, and today I wanted to talk about boundaries because me and someone else, I mean, I'm just seeing this all over the place where some people aren't at the conference right now with the Journey to the Truth conference, and some people aren't going to be going to conferences this year because they got things to do with their family. And so now this new healed person is going home. And so what I didn't realize is, like, as I'm going through this is becoming like a series of aha moments that we're sharing, but it's something, for some reason, as usual, the collective is going through it. But we knew this was going to happen because we stepped away so that we could figure things out for ourselves. But now we got to be back in the world, because guess what? No one's getting sucked up. This is not like what do they call that? The rapture, where you're going to get sucked up into a new space. Now that you learned what you learned, you have to live the life, right? So when I was going through this series, here's what happened. Me and another person that I know, we had to get a little bit boisterous, a little bit funky. We had to give some clap back and some lightning. One of my friends, as nice as they are, as gentle as they are, as kind and as serving as they are, was being manipulated, talked down to, and taken advantage of, and had to show a force, and threw a plate of food, wham, and it was like, you're not scared of me? You should be, because I'm not the one to be tested or played with. Because people are going to think, because you're healed and because you're spiritual or you're Christian or you're nice, that they can do whatever they want with you, and they're going to test your boundaries. And at some point, you're going to have to bring some thunder, bring some heat, bring some lightning. Even if you looked at the Bible with Jesus in the temple, he kicked over tables. He was not, I guess, I don't know where we get this idea that saintly means wimp. doormat. It does not. If you are going to be a leader of any kind, a teacher of any kind,
Well,
or or to even lead a family, you can be you if you're a good mom.
I
Sometimes
think
you
there's
gotta discipline, right? Go ahead, Terry.
well, I think, if you want to go back to the Bible, I think a lot of people go to that verse that says, "And the meek shall inherit the earth." So does that mean that we have to be meek? I don't think so. I think that was taken a little bit out of context. I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, I think you
It's
would have to
lost
go
something
ahead
in
and define
translation
meek.
because,
I think
yeah,
we would have to define meek
yeah.
because
But I
we
think
look
a
in
lot of
modern times
people,
what meek
by
means.
our, yeah, by our standards, it has a different meaning than maybe what it did back then. So,
Right,
it
because
was
now it has a
translated
negative
into the
use.
word meek.
It has a negative use, and that means timid. And it's so funny. I was watching
Yeah.
TV with somebody, and I was seeing how because that kind of they try to define feminine as that too, and so I've had other women say, "Well, am I not feminine?" And I'm like, "No," because people are using the wrong words they're creating their own definition of feminine. And feminine doesn't mean that you're just um I mean, excuse me, I'm so sorry. They have these images on TV where they try to define feminine, or even if you want to say meek or nice, as people who are wimpy, who stutter, stammer, who don't stand on their words, who are not firm, who don't know how to be who don't know how to speak for themselves, right? And so they just clump this thing in and saying, oh, meek, whatever, whatever, kind, nice. And it's like, no, I'm one of the nicest people you want to know, like kind, generous people. But I also will not let you call me any name that I don't like. I won't let you take from my son. I won't, I have boundaries and I'm vocal. Does that make me
So,
not feminine or not kind? No. So the kindness doesn't come with
so
weakness.
do you think, no? So, oh, go on. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, so the kindness doesn't come with weakness. That's where we're going with this. And so in the message, like if you went through this thing, do not go gently into that good night. And it says resist the passive fading, rage against quiet death. And then some of us are going into death. We're dying spiritually, emotionally, and physically because we're too passive and too quiet about asking for what we need and being firm with our own truth and our boundaries. And so this is about being brave, being emotional, being defiant. You can be emotional and be healed. You can be loud and be healed. You are not here to terrorize people, but there's a time where you have to give pushback. You know, it's called the action is rage with dignity at the end. Enforce your boundaries. And even if it gets loud, because that's what I was kind of noticing when I was speaking up for myself or things that I felt in the past were hurts and wrongs, so that I could let people know who I am. They were like, "Ooh, you need counseling." Like, no, bitch, I had counseling. I'm just trying to tell you who I am, what I've been through, how I feel, and where my boundaries are, and how this is why I interact with people this way. So why should I be attacked? And that's just a form of attack because now we can say, "Oh, you need counseling." It's like, no, I've dealt with who I am. You need counseling because you want to cover it up and keep it quiet. But people around me, maybe you need counseling, maybe you don't, but this is who I am today. So today was really about that, but it just brought me to that poem, Do Not Go Gently, into that good night, and then noticing how basically it's speaking on this on several levels, not just death, but there's a spiritual death. There's
Well, there's also I think what we have to also look at is we live in a society that has sort of defined its beliefs, its boundaries, and everything. And if you think outside of that box, then you're chastised for it. And meanwhile, we're asked, and I think that poem often says that, is think outside of those boundaries. Don't just fade into the light. Go, like check, like grow, experience, go beyond, go into that darkness and see what's there and bring light into it. Not just let the light die and let the belief systems take over, and then you feel trapped within them. Like, no, you have to break out of that boundary that's been placed by belief systems, and that's all they
Yeah.
are, is belief systems, and they're given power.
You cannot avoid conflicts and think that anything in your life is going to change. And so
Yeah.
one of the, I guess I already said, because it got to the point, there's like this ongoing thing with me and one of my family members, that it's like they want to press that button whenever they can. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let that person press that button on me again. I'm going to delete the button, and here's how we're going to delete it. I had to raise the roof, you know what I'm saying? So I had to hit the ceiling and be like, you know what? Let's clear this up now so that we never have to have this discussion again. We're going to clear this up. And I let out, the this tired idea of duty and responsibility of the daughter to just to take passive aggressive comments and insults and even suggestions about your life of how you should live differently compared to this other person. And it's like, you know what? I don't care about other people's how they live their life. I live my life this way. And if you want me in your life, you're going to have to respect me, because, and then just letting people know, like, you know what, the way that you talk to me, I feel like you don't care about me at all. You say you do, but if you really did, you wouldn't talk to me this way. Because my thing isn't, you don't have to change everything about yourself, but you will change the way that you speak to me. You will not talk to me this way. And this is how it makes me feel. And this is why I feel this way. And it just, and that don't always come quiet and gentle conversations. And sometimes you have to slam the door to open the door. You know what I mean? Like you have to make a little noise. And so this was a very ruckus conversation, but because I think that people they see my kindness as weakness. And even, even my family member admitted it, like, oh, I wanted you to be more like me, I wanted you to be more aggressive and louder or whatever. So let me help you, because this is the language that you understand. I'm gonna speak your language. This is me being loud with you so you understand. It is in me, it is possible, but let me help you by speaking your language so that you know that I don't tolerate this. I'm not a wimp. I'm not a punk. I have nothing to prove to you or anyone else, but I am going to set this boundary with you in a language that you understand. And sometimes people, they don't understand your language. So you got to translate. And it's okay for us multidimensional people to come into the 3D and say, okay, in a language that you understand, I'm going to speak your language. And
Mhm.
so funny, because even my friend, when they dropped that food, when they threw that food on the floor, it's like, okay, think twice, because I don't know how this person might respond next time. Because I really feel like sometimes you really have to show people, because they know who to mess with. They know who they can get
Yeah.
away with things. And I love it, because Lauren, a long time ago, I showed Lauren a video of some people doing some things, and she told me something that is stuck with me for through the last 3 years. It's easier to be a snake in church than it is to be a snake in the world. People know where they can do their sneaky, dirty stuff. They know where they can make their snide remarks and their comments, and where they can be passive aggressive, or where they can cheat and steal and lie. They know where they can go, because Terry ain't gonna say nothing. Erica ain't gonna say nothing. Deborah ain't gonna say nothing. So they'll come to your house and drop the poop on your carpet and be like, so what? Stuff that they wouldn't do in other places with other people, they'll do with you. So you do have to let people know. So I had some zingers for you guys. And it's sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is clap back with clarity because you know it, you see it, call it out. And you being healed, you grew. Now, guess what? You still have to check folks because it doesn't always magically change the people around you. But now you got to kind of like put their head on a swivel, get them straight when they're talking to you. Sometimes you got to flip the table you used to serve people at. So that same table you served with, sometimes you got to flip that over. Wow, that is so the equivalent of that food story though. And then peace has a volume and it isn't always quiet. I got two more. You can bring the nice, you can be the nice one and still bark back when someone crosses the line. And I'm not trying to be the villain. I'm not volunteering to be the victim anymore. I'm not trying
I
to
like
be the
that.
I'm just not volunteering to be the victim anymore. So those were my one-liners for today. Yeah, because you can be good and be kind. I mean, you can be good and be kind and still get loud. Because it's this image that because you're a good person that you what battle, what war can be won with you just sitting there being taken advantage of. And that, I think that's the other end of being overly empathetic. You have to
I
empathize to
think
an extent.
you touched on something there that I think you know we have to look at a little bit more from our point of view, and that is being a multidimensional self. I got to bring it back down because you know, we're on this path. You know, people who are watching this are on the path, so they understand that idea of being multidimensional. The people that we're dealing with don't understand that, and so they're at a lower frequency and we're at a higher frequency, and they want what we have but they can't get it, so they will try and get it as much as they can from us in whatever ways they can. And we try to be more passive. We don't want to get into that aggressive behavior, and so then they mistake our like less aggressive as being a pushover, and that's what we're not. And that's what when you say you can say it so many times, and then you finally stick up for it. But that's just you also having to take yourself to that place where they're at, so they stop what they're doing. But they're going to they'll keep poking at you because they want what you got, but they don't know how to get it. And meanwhile, here we've been working on things, like you said, through therapy, through growing, through spiritual development, through checking and learning all of these different things. And it's now time for us. We've learned all these things. Now it's time to implement what we've learned.
There's a quote on the screen. You are not
Oh,
required to whisper
I
your
can't hear
truth.
you now. Okay, I have to go out and then come back in. So I'll be right back.
So I'm just going to say these out loud. You are not required to whisper your truth. Okay? Because some people can't hear you. They tone deaf. They deaf. They can't hear you. So sometimes you got to let people know in a different fashion. Kindness has limits. You are not required to be a doormat. And sometimes conversations are messy, emotional, and raw. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. And we're waiting for Terry. And sometimes people will be, so surprised when you snap back, but it does, it means that they've been ignoring your quiet pleas. They have not heard you. You've been pleading in quiet, but they have not heard you. So it's okay. So I'm here to let people know you have permission. You have my permission. Like you needed my permission. But no, sometimes we need that. We need a hug and embrace, a pat on the back to let each other know, like, hey, because people, we're so hard on ourselves. I know I was this person who everything I did, she used to hit me with, well, what would Jesus do type of stuff all the time, and not, or you're hurting. Because see, that's the background of the religious affiliation. The background of the religious affiliation is to always plow you down with guilt with these quotes and sayings to make you feel like you are in the wrong. That's how most religion functions, right? They don't allow for you to have these boundaries. Not only that, it's people, what they do, when you get into certain spaces when it comes to religion and even spirituality, that to control you, people will try to put you off your guard, off your mark, by always interpreting things in a way, or slapping quotes on you that can sometimes put you in a box and don't allow you to express yourself. So, like I said, she was coming at me a lot with the, oh, you're hurting Jesus and you're hurting God, and all this stuff, but they're just taking one part of a teaching and using that to encapsulate the entirety of who you are and how you should respond. So this, I'm just saying how in the, like, people will take one Bible scripture or quote as if this is everything you should be, when the Bible or any religious text, these are very large books with large groups of teaching. If someone is taking that one quote and trying to manipulate you and control you with that one piece of text, so that they are trying to say that for you to be the good person, you have to be encapsulated in this and this alone. That is false. So this girl, she would come at me with the, well, you're hurting Jesus type thing, right? But what I ended up having to tell her was, people like us get manipulated because why? We take everything we do and we question it. And that's that inner voice connection thing that we have that a lot of other people don't have. They don't have inner dialogue that says, gosh, I slammed the phone on Terry. I feel a little bit strange. Should I have done that? So people like us, we have guilt inside us all day, every day, because we're questioning everything we do. And another person will come along and they will try to push that button and keep you under their control by pushing those buttons, guilt and little quotes. Oh, always it says what is it they say about your parents? That children should obey their parents, right? And a wife should obey their husband. But it also says, before that, it says that parents should not be a burden, and parents should not be a burden on their families, right? So before your parents can bully you with being obedient, they have to what? Not be a burden. So that's how one person will shift
Mm-hmm.
that one little quote and use it to try to damage you, control you. But anyway, I'll let you talk, Terry, because I'm about to show you your
Mm-hmm.
cards.
Well, I think we don't know. We can't talk for somebody else, and just adding that is like, well, would Jesus? How would Jesus? How do we know what Jesus would feel? Right? We don't know. So anyway, so with the cards today, I got the cards from the Intuitive Whispers Oracle, and so the first card that we got is the Precious Present Moment, and I'm getting with the message today. What we were talking about is sometimes we need to just start living in the moment instead of worrying about what so and so said last week or last year or what the family says. you know what, where are you right now? Where are your feelings right now? And it's living in this, the moment is the present. And that's where we need to start to move ourselves from. Never mind what went on in the past, because we can't change any of that. And of course, it's it's your perception, it's their perception, and we might be looking at the same event and seeing it totally differently. So people's judgments come from the past. So if you start living in the present moment, you can release those past influences. They don't hold, they're not relevant for where you are now and where you're going, because with the second card is become your own priority. That's what you'll have to do, is like, don't worry about what cousin Martha said. It's about your own priority and what you have to do to make your life better. And other people's burdens, other people's challenges are not yours. They made decisions, and you have to make yourself the priority, not having to try and solve what they brought on to themselves. So that's when you live in that present moment, you are becoming your own priority. And then you can just trust the call, because once you're in that present moment, you will be directed by your higher self, by that God self, by whoever you want to say. But the most important aspect is your higher self and your connection with that divine source and that divine spark. And once you start living in the now, then you're going to start listening to what you're being guided to do and guided to say, rather than based on what you were having to deal with in the past. So yeah, I don't know. I lost Erica somewhere, but anyway, that's sort of what I've getting from the cards that we pulled today. And I think the other thing is we touched about it a little bit earlier. Hi, Andy. We touched a bit earlier at the beginning of this, but we have been you know we have been doing so much work spiritually. It's now time for us to sort of take a step back and look at where we've been, what we've learned, and how do we implement it in our lives, because we can be on the path of learning and learning and learning, but there has to be a time when we stop and we say, okay, how am I implementing it in my life? Because, we can forever be a student, but we have to start living our life, not based on what this teacher said or that teacher said or another teacher said. Because, you take that information and you bring it into yourself, and then you decide, how do I implement all of these things that I learned? And what looks right for me may not look right for the next person, but, we each have to use our discernment and bring our best foot forward and start to live this life that we are, that we've been working with. Uh,
What,
okay,
what,
Erica,
what card are you on?
I did them all.
Ah, darn it. In this neighborhood, I guess they're doing a lot in this neighborhood. So they're constantly knocking on the door, and they are super aggressive. Like, I'm like, looking, what? I know you guys could hear that, right? It was so loud. But anyway, become your own
Yeah,
priority. That just stands out to me so much. And
yeah,
trust the call. Trust yourself.
exactly. Yeah. And that's just it, rather than the precious present moment, what I was just saying is that present moment is what we have, and what went on before, what goes on in the past, we have to start living in the present moment now. And so we take priority in our life. And once we
Well,
do, we're starting to listen to our higher self, right? It's like, and it's that whole idea is that we've done so much work. It's now time to start implementing what we've learned. Instead of always being the student, it's now time to sift through everything that we've learned and say, okay, maybe this worked, like in 1995, but it didn't work in 2012, and now in 2025 I have a different perspective of what I read, just like the poem from the beginning. What we read in high school, we have a different perspective of it now, and in high school we were told what we were supposed to think about this and what was that about, and as we dissected each line and everything. But now it has a different meaning for us because
It sure does.
we're looking at it from a spiritual point. And I think this is what all our learning is about. We can learn all these things, but we have to use our own discernment to see how it fits in for our path forward. That's where we become that priority. And
And
so
for
we'll
Andy,
listen to
since she
our
popped
higher
in,
self.
and Andy, for since you popped in, it's do not go gentle into that good night. So we went over and read that poem, and like how many years later for me? Um, about 35 years later. We won't bug Terry with when the last time she read that poem, but but it's been a long time, and I'm like,
Well,
wow,
let me just say that it was back in the 70s.
it was in the 70s. Yeah, yeah. So that poem, for some reason, that poem does pop into my head, like "Do not go gently into that good night." But it's probably it's like it's probably like a funny real clip that goes into my head whenever I say it. But then
Yeah.
now looking at it, something completely different, maybe not completely different, but just something a little bit different. But I'm going to go back to these cards because I'm also going to add something to it that we um have heard and said, right? And it is take no prisoners on this trip. Take no prisoners on this journey. Now, when you go back and read this poem, add that to your mental Rolodex. And why I'm saying this is because I told Terry yesterday, once I said what I said and did what I did, now people back down, or they like, okay, we're not worthy, we're not worthy. Like when they wave the white flag. Now when they wave the white flag, now what? Because in your heart you actually still want to be mad, and you still want to keep flexing because you've been so used to fighting and defending yourself. Now, I'm not saying you got to lay your complete guard down, because in your heart, before you let your guard down and you got stomped on because the person seemed like they was changing or going to act away, and they didn't. And so now it's like looking at this, how do I do this without taking prisoners and holding them hostage? And I got to come feed them every day. I got to torture them every day, right? Because now I got these prisoners in the war, this battle that I've been taking on. How do I release them? Because I like to tell people now, when you have a grudge or when you feel like someone's done you wrong, or, like when you're at that point, you put them in a prison and you are the warden, and every day you got to shake your keys and come let them in, let them out, feed them. How do you release this completely so that you don't have to keep coming to jail? Because the warden, you hold the key, but you still got to come hang out in the jail. And so that means you're also suffering emotionally and spiritually when you keep this grudge or when you keep this count of wrong, and you're actually suffering. And
Mm-hmm.
in this, when it says the precious moment
Exactly.
of the present, I'm thinking for myself that I have to enjoy the victory, that the apology came, or that you saw a glimpse of hope, and I have to become my own priority, which means I have to be forgiving I still have to even forgive myself, right? For I was acting, out of source. This is not me. I have to forgive myself, and I
Mhm.
have to trust that I was wondering for myself, Terry, like, why am I going through this when I healed the people for my childhood and I forgave people for my childhood, but then I realized, like, I'm here as an adult I actually, now the inner child healings have come into play, but now I have to heal from an adult perspective, not just from the child perspective. And so that would have been invoking the boundaries and doing whatever it is that we do. But now it's like the adult me has to heal because the adult me doesn't want to be defensive. The adult me doesn't want
Mhm.
to keep being triggered in conversations when that has already moved to the past and now we're in the present. And so I didn't know if you wanted to
Mhm.
speak.
Well, I think just, as you're saying that, yeah, we as adults, we have a different perspective on things. And so, um, as kids, we didn't have that emotional understanding. As adults, we see things a little bit deeper. And so we have layers. It's like the onion, right? We've got layers to release and stuff. But the core goes back to that childhood, right? It's all those other layers that were added on top of it, and so we have to just gently release those things, and know
Right.
that we are also changing our thought processes too.
So going back to that,
So
releasing
there
it,
was that
giving
core
hug.
hurt.
Yeah. Nurture. So it's time for us to
Mhm.
nurture ourselves. Like the battle is over. We got some wounds still because it's still some wounds from that residual wounds. Almost like muscle memory, right? Like there's like when you have surgery, even years after the surgery is over, sometimes you'll feel the ache or pain, you know. And so we have to calm that part of ourselves down and be like, wait a minute, you don't have to fight again today. Okay, you can relax, go back in the box, and release it, release it,
Mm,
nurture it, and nurture
yeah.
ourselves. God, Terry, I just want you to pull cards all day. I just like cards. I don't know.
Well, we'll go on to Telegram and we'll pull some cards there for a while.
Yeah, I am doing a lot of self care lately. Girl, it is required. I see what she said about the solar flares. Just had a
Yeah.
X1.21 solar flare. Explains some things happening. Yeah, because Mother's Day wasn't like a regular Mother's Day. And I don't think it was. A lot of people didn't have a regular Mother's
No.
Day.
No.
It was not the same. And some of
No.
us were like, I had to go back to the hospital and be like, hi, mom. Because I already said what I had to say and it's all over now. And so now I'm like, here's your juice. Here's your. Oh, it's so funny. But you know what I really appreciated about the situation? She was like, you feel better today? You all right? Okay. Yeah, I care about your feelings. And that's sometimes that's what we need. We need hugs. I was just even saying that to my sister. Like, have you ever been held by another woman?
Yeah, but
Meaning your mom,
yeah,
your aunt,
sometimes
your
we need
sister, your
hugs, and
cousin. Yeah. And
yeah,
I think, that's why
that's
sometimes we have
important to have
yeah,
that nurture.
yeah. We need to be nurtured a bit. Because some things
Yeah,
you can do as much as you can for yourself, but sometimes you might need that. And I think that's why too. And even Jonathan and I had that discussion one time about creating space with certain friends that you trust, that you can say, okay, if I need a hug or if I need someone, if I need to say I love you and you can say love you to me, that we have a space where we can have some normalcy without being weird, but this thing that
yeah,
we need, because there's things that we need and we're like, where do we get it from? Where's the space that we can say I love you or get hugs or be like I need you to hold me.
Uh, and you know what? That's part of finding our tribe. And I think it's one thing to be able to do it with females, but it's also nice to be able to give a male a hug without it meaning anything more
Mhm.
than just a hug and nurturing, right? And as soon as
Exactly.
as soon as you're with the opposite sex, you put this shield up because, oh, I don't want to be, but I just want to hug that person, and it doesn't have to be anything outside of nurturing and
Yeah,
care and love, love. But this is another topic. Is like we all have a different definition of love, but sometimes just an unconditional and safe space to just love someone for who they are instead of what they can do for you,
right. And that I
or
do believe
what
that.
need they can feel for you.
And that's the discussion that Jonathan and I had about being able to do that without someone pushing their sexual and relationship needs on you, where we can know how to truly be friends
Mm,
with. Because I think that happens, like as soon as that appears in a male female, or a, even if it's the same sex situation, but when it's someone, when you put your sexual desires onto them, when we're supposed to be in a space of love and friendship, so discussing it ahead of time so that you can make that space. As there's several people that I know, like my friend Patrick, or even Jonathan, or people where you can just have that male energy, hug, candid conversation without us having to be like, I think I like him, or I think she likes me, like being weird about it later. Like, yeah, it's good to have that space and to create that space. And please understand that our male counterparts, they actually need that from you too. They need it
mm,
too. They need mommy, sister, cousin energy from us in a divine
yes.
feminine way. So that being said, we're gonna check on out.
And we're
I
going to
think we hit
see
a
you
bunch of
on
different
Telegram.
topics. Yeah, I think we hit a bunch of different topics, but all needed, all
Yeah.
needed.
But it was always, it's always wonderful having our little discussions on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
So thank you for
If people
joining us.
don't
Thank
watch
you,
to the
Andy, and
end,
anybody else who's joining us later.
thank you. People, if you don't
Yeah.
watch to the end, they will miss really important stuff that's all the way like left, not even a part of the main discussion. They will miss really good stuff. So I encourage everyone, watch
Mhm.
to the end because you will miss something really good, some juicy. And I'm gonna hit this button. Bye.
As you're saying this at the end. Okay. Bye.